Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you're in the mood for some more creepy Edgar Allan Poe. That's what I've got for you today. I'm actually in a couple of Halloween groups on Facebook, and I mentioned that I was doing readings of Poe on my channel, and one of the people in the group said that they really liked the Cask of Amontillado, so hi, that's what we're doing today. So I hope you see this and I hope you enjoy it. And this is a longer one, so I'm prepared. I got my trusty, awesome Halloween cup. And my little man. This is what I call Halloween Eve, or what normal people refer to as September. So yeah, we gotta up the creep factor a little bit. Got my awesome quilts, and my little man, and my cup, and let's get into it, shall we? Because I don't remember this story. The only one I actually remember by him is the Telltale Heart that I started off with. So we're gonna have some fun, and I don't know if this is new for you or not. It's about 6 pages, but that's some little print there, so this might be a little on the long side. So bear with me. Hopefully we can get through it and it'll turn out awesome. And if not, at least, let's see if I can scooch this there. Oh, here we are. And you can see at least my little man. So you'll have some nice cute visuals to go with it. So, the 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could. But when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. You, who so well knew the nature of my soul, will not suppose, however, that I gave utterance to a threat. At length I would be avenged. This was a point definitively settled. But the very definitiveness with which it was resolved precluded the idea of risk. I must not only punish, but punish with impunity. A wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. It is equally unredressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. It must be understood that neither by word nor deed had I given Fortunato cause to doubt my goodwill. I continue, as was my wont, to smile in his face, and he did not perceive that my smile now was at length the thought of his immolation. And we all know that smile, don't we? Every woman has that. I'm innocent, but not really. We're smiling because we're plotting our revenge, and you will not see it coming for what you have done. And some people know that smile because they've been on the receiving end and are terrified. Oh, and we're getting abandoned by my little man. Apparently it's playtime. He had a weak point, this Fortunato, although in other regards he was a man to be respected and even feared. He prided himself on his connoisseurship, that's a bit of a tongue twister, in wine. Few Italians have the true virtuoso spirit. For the most part, their enthusiasm is adopted to suit the time and opportunity. To practice imposture upon the British and Austrian millionaires. In painting and gimmery, Fortunato, like his countrymen, was a quack. But in the matter of old wines, he was sincere. Ooh. And I don't know if y'all can tell, but I've got Harry Potter in the background that I was watching earlier, so gets a little loud when they get to playing the music and yelling. In this respect, I did not differ from him materially. I was skillful in the Italian vintages myself, and bought largely whenever I could. It was about dusk, one evening during the supreme madness of the carnival season, that I encountered my friend. He accosted me with excessive warmth, for he had been drinking much. The man wore motley. He had on a tight-fitting, party-striped dress, and his head was surmounted by the conical cap and bells. I was so pleased to see him that I thought I should never have done wringing his hand. I said to him, "My dear Fortunato, you are luckily met. How remarkably well you are looking today." but I have received a pipe of what passes for Amontillado, and I have my doubts. How? He said. Amontillado? A pipe? Impossible. And in the middle of the carnival. I have my doubts, I replied, and I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you in the matter. You were not to be found, and I was fearful of losing a bargain. Amontillado! I have my doubts. Amontillado! And I must satisfy them. Amontillado! As you are engaged, I am on my way to Lucchesi. If anyone has critical turn, it is he. He will tell me, Lucchesi cannot tell Amontillado from sherry. And yet some fools will have it that his taste is a match for your own. Come, let us go. Whither? To your vaults. My friend, no, I will not impose upon your good nature. I perceive you have an engagement. Lucchesi, I have no engagement. Come. My friend, no. It is not the engagement, but the severe cold with which I perceive you are afflicted. The vaults are insufferably damp. They are encrusted with nitre. Let us go, nevertheless. The cold is merely nothing. Amontillado! You have been imposed upon. As for Lucchesi, he cannot distinguish sherry from Amontillado. Thus speaking, Fortunato possessed himself of my arm, putting on a mask of black silk and drawing a roquelaire. I'm not sure what the heck that is, or if I'm even close to saying that right. But he drew the thing that I can't say closely about my person. I suffered him to hurry me to my palazzo. There were no attendants at home. They had absconded to make merry in honor of the time. I had told them that I should not return until the morning, and had given them explicit orders not to stir from the house. These orders were sufficient, I well knew, to ensure their immediate disappearance, one and all, as soon as my back was turned. I took from their sconces 2 flambeaux and gave one to Fortunato, bowed him through several suites of rooms to the archway that led into the vaults. I passed down a long and winding staircase, requesting him to be cautious as he followed. We came at length to the foot of the descent, and stood together on the damp ground of the catacombs, the Montresors. I really want to explore that place. It sounds awesome. The gait of my friend was unsteady, and the bells upon his cap jingled as he strode. The pipe, said he. It is farther on, said I, but observe the white webwork which gleams from these cavern walls. He turned to me and looked me in the eyes with 2 filmy orbs that distilled the rheum of intoxication. Nitre? He asked at length. Nitre, I replied. How long have you had that cough? My poor friend found it impossible to reply for many minutes. It is nothing, he said at last. Come, I said, with decision. We will go back. Your health is precious. You are rich, respected, admired, beloved. You are happy, as once I was. You are a man to be missed. For me it is no matter. We will go back. You will be ill, and I cannot be responsible. Besides, there is Lucchesi. Enough. The cough is a mere nothing. It will not kill me. I shall not die of a cough. True, I replied. And indeed, I had no intention of alarming you unnecessarily, but you should use all proper precaution. A draught of this medoc will defend us from the damps. And a draught does sound pretty good. I love me some lemonade. Usually that's my teacup, but I was in the mood for lemonade today. Here I knocked off the neck of the bottle, which I drew from a long row of its fellows that lay upon the mold. Drink, I said, presenting him with the wine. He raised it to his lips with a leer. He paused and nodded to me familiarly while his bells jingled. I drink, he said, to the buried that repose around us, and I to your long life. He took again my arm, and we proceeded. These vaults, he said, are extensive. The Montresors, I replied, were a great and numerous family. I forget your arms. A huge human foot door in a field azure. The foot crushes a serpent rampant, whose fangs are embedded in the heel. And the motto? Nemo me impune lustet? Lustit? I don't know. It's another one of them Latin words I can't say. And I'm probably going to tick off the few people that actually can say that correctly, so sorry. Good, he said. The wine sparkled in his eyes and the bells jingled. My own fancy grew warm with the medic. We had passed through walls of piled bones with casks of puncheons intermingling into the inmost recesses of the catacombs. I paused again, and this time I made bold to seize Fortunato by an arm above the elbow. The knitter! See, it increases. It hangs like moss upon the vaults. We are below the river's bed. The drops of moisture trickle among the bones. Come, we will go back ere it is too late. Your cough. It is nothing. Let us go on. But first, another draught of the medic. I broke and reached him a flacon of the Grave. He emptied it at a breath. His eyes flashed with a fierce light. He laughed and threw the bottle upwards with a gesticulation I did not understand. I looked at him in surprise. He repeated the movement, a grotesque one. You do not comprehend? Not I. Then you are not of the Brotherhood. How? You are not of the Masons. Yes, yes, I said. Yes, yes. You? Impossible. A Mason? A Mason, I replied. A sign. It is this, I answered, producing a trowel from beneath the folds of my roquelaire. You jest, he exclaimed, recoiling a few paces. But let us proceed to the Amontillado. That is one track-minded guy. But not unusual. Be it so, I said, replacing the tool beneath the cloak, and again offering him my arm. He leaned upon it heavily. We continued our route in search of the Amontillado. We passed through a range of low arches, descended, passed on, and descending again, arrived at a deep crypt in which the foulness of the air caused our flambeau rather to glow than flame. At the most remote end of the crypt there appeared another less spacious. Its walls had been lined with human remains, piled to the vault overhead, in the fashion of the great catacombs of Paris. 3 sides of this interior crypt were still ornamented in this manner. From the fourth the bones had been thrown down and lay promiscuously upon the earth, forming at one point a mound of some size. Within the wall thus exposed by the displacing of the bones, we perceived a still interior recess, in depth about 4 feet, in width 3, in height 6 or 7. It seemed to have been constructed for no especial use within itself, but formed merely the interval between 2 of the colossal supports of the roof of the catacombs, and was backed by one of their circumscribing walls of solid granite. It was in vain that Fortunato, uplifting his dull torch, endeavored to pry into the depths of the recess. Its termination the feeble light did not enable us to see. Proceed, I said. Herein is the Amontillado. As for Luchesi, he is an ignoramus, interrupted my friend, and he stepped unsteadily forward, while I followed immediately at his heels. In an instant he had reached the extremity of the niche, and finding his progress arrested by the rock, stood stupidly bewildered. A moment more, and I had fettered him to the granite. In its surface were 2 iron staples, distant from each other about 2 feet horizontally. From one of these deepened a short chain, from the other a padlock. Throwing the links about his waist, I was but the work of a few seconds to secure it. He was too much astounded to resist. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the recess. Now that's some shadiness for somebody that's supposedly a really great guy and friend. Can't trust these dudes. Pass your hand, I said, over the wall. You cannot help feeling the knitter. Indeed, it is very damp. Once more, let me implore you to return. No? Then I must positively leave you. But I must first render you all the little attentions in my power. The Amontillado! Ejaculated my friend, not yet recovered from his astonishment. True, I replied. The Amontillado. As I said these words, I busied myself among the piles of bones of which I have before spoken. Throwing them aside, I soon uncovered a quantity of building stone and mortar. With these materials, and with the aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance to the niche. I had scarcely laid the first tier of my masonry when I discovered that the intoxication of Fortunato had in great measure worn off. The earliest indication I had of this was a low moaning cry from the depth of the recess. It was not the cry of a drunken man. There was then a long and obstinate silence. I laid the second tier, and the third, and the fourth, and then I heard the furious vibrations of the chain. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which, that I might hearken to it with more satisfaction, I ceased my labors and sat down upon the bones. When at last the clanking subsided, I resumed with the trowel, and finished without interruption the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh tier. The ball was now nearly upon a level with my breast. Again I paused, and holding the flambeau over the mason work, threw a few feeble rays upon the figure within. A succession of loud and shrill screams, bursting suddenly from the throat of the chained form, seemed to thrust me violently back. For a brief moment I hesitated. I trembled. Unsheathing my rapier, I began to grope with it along the recess. But the thought of an instant reassured me. I placed my hand upon the solid fabric of the catacombs, and felt satisfied. I reapproached the wall. I replied to the yells of him who clamored. I re-echoed, I aided, I surpassed them in volume and in strength. I did this, and the clamor grew still. It was now midnight, and my task was drawing to a close. I had completed the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th tier. I had finished a portion of the last and the 11th. There remained but a single stone to be fitted and plastered in. I struggled with its weight. I placed it partially in its destined position, but now there came from the niche a low laugh that erected the hairs upon my head. It was succeeded by a sad voice, which I had difficulty in recognizing as that of the noble Fortunato. The voice said, "Ha ha, hee hee, a very good joke indeed, an excellent jest. We will have many a rich laugh about it at the palazzo. Hee hee, over our wine. Hee hee, the Amontillado," I said. Hee hee, yes, the Amontillado. But is it not getting late? Will not they be waiting for us at the palazzo? The Lady Fortunato and the rest? Let us be gone. Yes, I said, let us be gone. For the love of God, Montresor, yes, for the love of God. But to these words I hearkened in vain for reply. I grew impatient. I called out, "Fortunato!" And then the pups got really angry. No answer. I called again, "Fortunato!" No answer still. I thrust the torch through the remaining aperture and let it fall within. There came forth in return only a jingling of the bells. My heart grew sick on account of the dampness of the catacombs. I hastened to make an end of my labor. I forced the last stone into its position. I plastered it up. Against the new masonry, I re-erected the old rampart of bones. For the half of a century, no mortal has disturbed them. In place requiescent. That is dark. Friends like that, who needs enemies? Especially if they ain't even got a little man to warn them. Ooh. Yeah, the garbage man's coming to take away the non-human trash. So, this is definitely a fun one. I don't know if y'all have read Christopher Moore, but if you haven't, you need to. And he also does a Shakespeare series. In the start of the second book, The Serpent of Venice, the scene is very much like what I just read you here, except for, in that case, the jester kind of has a clue what's going on, and he's mostly sober and very smart aleck about it, and ticks off the guy that's trying to brick him up. And then it detours from there to something you'll have to read to understand. So, I hope y'all enjoyed that, extra sound effects and all, and I will see you next time. Bye! Happy reading!